10 Mistakes Made in the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War is one of the most divisive conflicts in American history. Lasting from the late 1950s until 1975, it involved not only the United States and Vietnam, but also drew in global powers and shaped Cold War politics. Despite America's unmatched military technology and economic strength, the war ended in failure for the U.S. and immense suffering for the Vietnamese people. But why? Today we're looking at the top 10 mistakes made in the Vietnam War. Errors in strategy, politics, and perception that changed the course of history. 10. Underestimating the enemy. American officials assumed North Vietnam and the Viet Cong couldn't stand up to U.S. firepower. But the enemy was highly motivated, organized, and deeply familiar with their terrain. They were willing to fight a long war of attrition, knowing that patience and persistence could wear down America's will to fight. 9. Misreading nationalism as communism. To U.S. leaders, Vietnam was simply another domino in the spread of global communism. But for many Vietnamese, this was a fight for national independence, not just ideology. By ignoring the nationalist element, America underestimated the depth of local support for the Viet Cong and failed to win popular legitimacy. 8. The domino theory obsession. The fear that all of Southeast Asia would fall to communism if Vietnam did kept America locked in. Yet history proved otherwise. Thailand, Malaysia, and other nations didn't collapse when Saigon fell. The theory oversimplified the region and pushed the U.S. deeper into a war it couldn't control. 7. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. In 1964, reports of attacks on U.S. ships led Congress to hand President Johnson sweeping war powers. But the attack was later revealed to be misinterpreted, if not fabricated. This resolution gave the White House almost unlimited authority to escalate, committing the nation to full-scale war without proper debate. Our over-reliance on body counts. Military progress was measured by how many enemy soldiers were killed. But body counts are deceptive. North Vietnam had large reserves of manpower, and guerrilla warfare meant fighters could vanish and reappear. This obsession gave U.S. leaders and the public a false impression that victory was near. 5. Alienating the local population. U.S. forces often destroyed villages suspected of aiding the Viet Cong. Bombings, napalm strikes, and forced relocations alienated civilians. Instead of winning hearts and minds, these actions turned many ordinary villagers into active or passive supporters of the insurgency. 4. Ignoring geography and guerrilla warfare. Vietnam's dense jungles, hidden tunnels, and rice paddies made conventional tactics almost useless. U.S. troops were trained for open-field battles, not ambushes and hit-and-run attacks. The Viet Cong's knowledge of the land and ability to vanish underground constantly frustrated American forces. First, in the Tet Offensive miscalculation. In 1968, U.S. leaders told Americans the war was being won. Then came the Tet Offensive, a massive surprise attack across South Vietnam. Although U.S. and South Vietnamese troops repelled it militarily, the scale of the assault shocked the public and proved the enemy was far from defeated. The credibility gap widened and American support collapsed. 2. Leadership and the credibility gap. Presidents Johnson and Nixon often downplayed problems and exaggerated successes. As television brought images of the war into American homes, the official narrative clashed with what people saw. This credibility gap fueled protests, deepened political divisions, and eroded faith in the government. No clear exit strategy. Perhaps the biggest mistake was entering a war without a realistic plan for either victory or withdrawal. U.S. leaders kept escalating in hopes of forcing a settlement, but they underestimated their opponent's resolve. After years of sacrifice, billions of dollars, and more than 58,000 American lives, the U.S. left Vietnam without achieving its goals. The Vietnam War left scars that lasted for generations, on veterans, civilians, and nations. It remains a reminder that military power alone cannot solve political problems, and that understanding culture, history, and local motivations is just as important as weapons and strategy. By studying these mistakes, we can learn lessons about leadership, foreign policy, and the true costs of war.